Welcome to Unlocking My Potential, a podcast all about women in STEM sharing their stories, struggles, and the lessons that shape their paths. I'm Natalie, and I'm really glad to have you here today. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Unlocking My Potential. Today I'm here with Ashton, and she will be sharing a little bit of her background from an art major to a STEM major within her university experience, how was it transferring from one place to another, a little bit of her current position, um, and just personal growth and so much more. So very excited to have you here with us today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and share my journey and little tidbits I found throughout the
Yeah,
years.
no, you have such a unique journey, which I'm very excited to hear all about it into details. So let's start in the beginning, from high school to college. What was your initial plan as a 17, 18-year-old kid at that point into what do I want to do with my life? What does that look like? Interests and things like that.
Yeah, so of course, I don't know about many people, but I kind of was still in high school, unsure about what I actually wanted to pursue. But I did recognize around my senior year that my college journey wouldn't have been so straightforward as saying just a 4-year experience. I did work part-time and I knew I was going to be kind of paying out of pocket through my college career. So I decided once I graduated high school that I was just going to jump right into college. So only a couple weeks after I grabbed my diploma, I applied for my community college that was in my town. And I started off with Associates of Arts. I decided that I was going to maybe try to become a graphic designer in some sense with also a little bit of like STEM focus. I was always heard growing up that that saying where it's if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And I heard that repeatedly throughout my childhood and then also just like teachers as well that helped guide me. So that was kind of what stemmed. I had a passion in art. I still do it as a personal hobby. So I said, why not? And then I have a fascination and a strong interest in things such as like typography and color theory and just how we even incorporate those in like branding perspectives. But yeah, soon halfway through my college career, that focus was a little short lived. I discovered that I did not want my career to be focused on such a personal hobby of mine. And as I was completing my art credits and then just those core classes in your associate's degree, I was teetering with some STEM, so some coding, learning some PCs, so like comp A plus and things like that. I'm getting some certifications there just as my elective classes, and found coding was actually enjoyable. Realizing that programming in itself is a creative outlet. Essentially, you're utilizing a creative form through utilizing languages, algorithms to create a function or a transaction in some way, shape, or form. And not only that, it's not one programmer initially programs the same. You can kind of get the same result using different tools in different languages, and then just how one developer uses that language and it in itself is an art form. So that's what kind of transition. So I did kind of like a reflection and said, all right, this is where I'm at. I'm like halfway through my associate's art degree. How do I transition and move forward to where I can go to a BS and focus on computer science? So once I figured out the gaps of where I was missing and then how I can transition, I also started looking into universities because I knew um, even before starting my journey at the community college, I definitely wanted a university to complete my bachelor's degree. Since at the time when I joined the community college, that's all they had were associate's degree and just certifications for specific fields. So I was on a hunt for university. Did not really find anything right off the bat that screamed to me. I really enjoyed the smaller class sizes, the more flexibility within my community college experience. I enjoyed having kind of like those easy one-to-one connections with your professor. Ironically enough, my psychology professor, she happened to be, I think she did some volunteer hours in the office. So she helped kind of plan out the rest of my credits for my degree. So I used to set up time just to kind of schedule out because back then we just had paper. Like doing it digitally was not a thing. So you had just a long paper full of all kinds of courses, and then they type it in their system to see if you had the prereqs and things like that. So she really helped plan. And what was interesting, she also kind of helped and encouraged me to do that pivot from arts to computer science. She herself even worked for Disney when they were out in Orlando. So she actually did some productions for some of the Pixar movies and Disney movies before they moved them directly to California. So seeing her transition from something like that, becoming a psychology professor and being great at it, I took two of her courses. It really encouraged me that it will be okay if I pivot and that I probably made the right choice for myself. So yeah,
No, that
I
is
was
amazing. I have a quick question for
yeah,
you,
you're good.
taking you back a little bit. So what actually made you decide of, okay, I have been pursuing this associates in arts, but now I'm going to pivot completely to a STEM education. What was going on in your mind and what actually made you take that decision? Because I think that's a pretty big transition from arts to STEM, even though you can connect, like you mentioned, graphic design, and you're able to connect art and the technology in so many different ways. And still, that's a pretty huge transition of the type of classes, the type of learning, the type of work that you're gonna be doing moving forward. So what made you, make that decision at the end of the day?
Oh, so it is kind of a personal touch for home, and I strongly believe I made the right choice. So my passion for art stems from a connection, and just like a childhood connection as well. My great grandmother was really good, very talented, and she believes that you should always practice and keep it up, even if you have a passion for it or a natural talent. So as I was doing these courses like drawing 101 and then continuing on to those, the type of feedback I got, I felt a little bit restricted for my own creativity. And I was wondering if that would actually play into my career. I did not want my art to be driven by, I hate to say this, but honestly, by a salary.
Uh-huh.
I did not want to tarnish the appreciation and love I have for doing just artistic things, drawing, painting. Even though I did love learning more and growing my own personal skill set, I just didn't want it to be tied to a career. So I took a reflection back and asked myself, what do I actually want to do day to day? Yes, art is something I love, but can I actually enjoy doing that? And could I just leave that at the door when I got off work? I kind of like to keep my home work balance very, very serious. So once the clock ends and I come home, it's at the door, or even I leave it at the office building. Even though I do love what I do for my career, I just wanted to keep that arts perspective something close and dear to me. So I still do it on my time, and I actually have two separate workstations for each one. So even if I'm at home working hybrid, my career does not touch on my home life. So two separate rooms
I love
and just
that.
loving that balance.
No, that is amazing. I've heard a lot of times, honestly, from a lot of different people, exactly what you just mentioned of they went into a career that was extremely their passion, and in the middle of it or along the way, not that they fully lose the passion, but, like, a little bit. They lose a little bit of sometimes of, like, the enjoyment of doing the work because it's not something that you wanna do, it's something that now you have to do on a daily basis, and you have to keep working at it, to get the paycheck or to keep moving forward with your career. So, I've heard that so many times, especially with someone that is super artistic, very creative people, that they wanna keep that super close to their heart, and they wanna do it whenever they have the time, whenever they have the bandwidth, in different ways, in different approaches, without having a deadline or a timeline or have to do it in a very specific way that the company wants you to do or whatever the case may be. So, you're not the first person that I hear saying that, to be honest, which to me makes completely sense of why you made the transition at the end of the day. Um, and from your art, you said that in college you start working on figuring out, okay, what classes you had already, what was it prereq from some other classes, and you looking for some universities, not finding the universities that had all the kind of requisites that you wanted. Can you keep sharing a little bit on that story?
Yeah. So, of course, the more art specific courses weren't going to transfer over, but looking for universities, it's extremely important to kind of find yourself an environment that you feel comfortable in, that aligns with your goals as a student, has resources that you actually want to utilize and what will benefit more to you and your goal, especially if you're someone who enjoys club activities and using that as kind of a stepping ground to get you more experience and also just recognition to get you into the work force faster once you graduate or even help with internships. So for me, I also took in consideration I'm going to STEM. And not all universities do this, but some do. They prefer you to actually take certain courses of their own, even the core courses like math. And this also impacts students who in high school did dual enrollment. So if you did knock out some math courses, but yet you're in STEM, universities kind of just want you to focus on maybe their courses just based on their teaching plans. I think it's what really impacts those decisions. So during my transition and transfer to a university, I really wanted to see how much I can get transferred over as I did take some elective classes like networking, some programming classes, and things like that. But ironically, I wasn't finding a lot of universities within Florida that aligned with my goals. I did have some high school alumni that were on various universities to campus, so I used them to kind of say, hey, what is it like? I even had some alumni who were actually in STEM programs and I would visit at campuses. So I got to the point where I was a little discouraged and that I would just have to kind of settle for something. But it wasn't before long that a Florida Poly admissions advisor, counselor reached out to me and said, "Hey, have you heard of this school, Florida Poly?" And they kind of just asked if I was willing to hear them out and understand what Florida Poly was about. So I did. I toured the campus, thought it was beautiful. The structure was amazing. The idea of just having that small class sizes, which kind of pretty much was one to one what you see in like community college, which I think most of them might be state colleges now, but just that class size was small. Being able to have your professors be very accessible to you really played a big aspect for myself. Nothing against larger universities. Um, Having appointments and then having that stress, especially during exam times, worrying if you can't connect with your professor because you have something, or being in a large lecture hall and maybe you might be nervous to like ask a question based on the size. It just wasn't ideal for me. So hearing about Florida Poly, even though it was a new concept, a new school, I figured why not? They aligned with what I needed to achieve my goal, even though they were new. And I believed in the resources that they were explaining to me that they would benefit me. And I would actually do it again. I don't regret the decision I had to attend Florida Poly.
I understand. I think going to a small school with the small classrooms, it's one of the main reasons why I ended up going to Florida Poly too. I knew for myself that I kind of needed the extra time and attention from the professors when it was to focus on some specific topics, when it came time. 2 points that you mentioned, which it was literally in my mind. One is speaking in a huge classroom that was a huge for me of a no, I cannot do it. But if it's a very small class, like we had experienced at Florida Poly, it just felt more comfortable in a way because you're in a very small room with just a few people. and everyone knows each other in the whole university, so you know exactly who's sitting around you, and you feel more comfortable to ask the questions. You feel more comfortable to just have different conversations they usually wouldn't with a big classroom, which I really liked it. In the exam times and final times, I think that was honestly game changing. Just being able to knock at the professor's office, having a conversation, asking questions about something, asking for them to explain in a different way a topic that you're just not getting for the final exam, any kind of conversation. I have a lot of friends that went to really big universities, and that is something that they did not experience at all. Or for them to experience that, they'll have to go and actually sign up for a time to talk to the professor. And sometimes that was a few days from that time, from the moment, where for us was just show up, just knock, have conversations, and it was just so helpful. So I get it. I completely understand, and I think a lot of us that ended up going to a small school like that all feel the same way of, "Hey, this was my biggest one of my biggest pet peeves," I think I'll say. Like, focusing at a university, yeah, in my mind, I don't regret my decision either, to be honest. I think it was the perfect decision for me to go to a small university, and there's just so much more that comes with it, right? On a very positive way, I'll say. So focusing on that, okay, so you went, you visited the campus, which if no one has heard of Florida Polytechnic University, go look at the pictures. It's so pretty, it's so unique. Your main building in the middle of a lake. It's very different. That's something that caught my eye too the first time that I went. But okay, you went to the campus, you talked to everyone, you learn about the resources, what the university was all about, and you just made a decision of, okay, I'm gonna go for it and I'm gonna go into this university. What was the process of actually transferring from a community college to that university, and then how was your path within the university itself?
Yeah, so surprisingly, it was pretty straightforward, easy transition, especially it being a newer school. They really took into account my Associates of Arts degree, walked me through what was going to be accepted, what was not going to be accepted. I even was actually able to technically join in the fall of 2015. Even though I was going to be a transfer student at Florida Poly, it was kind of like a clean slate. I was coming in with credits, but I was still considered to be a freshman. But I did feel very comfortable with the counselor and said, hey, for 3 years, I've been kind of just pretty much a full year college student since high school, doing classes fall, spring, and summer for those 3 years. So I was like, hey, I would like to just kind of take a break. What would it look like if I actually came in spring of 2016? And I said that was no problem at all. So that transition was really great for me. Especially I had to get some things in order before I transitioned to Lakeland too itself. So yeah, I did have a cat at the time, so I would have to lug him with college with me. So yeah, that was actually smooth. Now getting into classes, it was a little bit interesting. Joint orientation, seeing kids that are just fresh out of high school was a little nerve wracking. It's kind of like that imposter syndrome. It's like, I stand out? I've already completed 3 years of college. Just I kind of felt a little out of place, but surprisingly, the dynamic of the student body of Florida Poly is very welcoming in itself. You kind of are kind of thrown in with like-minded individuals where I feel like it kind of helps you transition, even though it might be a little nervous at first. So yeah, once I got into Florida Poly and started taking those courses, I really thought the curriculum that they designed at the time was very challenging, very geared towards what you expect to see in the workforce. And then also, I believe the professors and faculty actually took in consideration how STEM colleagues see day to day in whether it's an office setting, a laboratory setting. I noticed that right away, especially project management. That was my summer at Florida Poly, so like my second semester there. I at the time did not know that what I was learning is going to be kind of one to one with how I operate today with my team on an agile scrum cadence and just workflow. We plan out 3 months. Every 2 weeks, we say We present to our shareholders and said, hey, this is what we've developed this far. This is what we're working on, what we completed. What's your feedback from us? How can we improve this? And then we take that back for the next 2 weeks, continue our work. If we need to pivot something, we pivot. And the project management class that I took essentially was the same. We had a goal. Our professor was our project manager and our stakeholder, which we presented, hey, you gave us a problem. Here's our solution. We met with him every 2 weeks, demonstrated that. And another key factor, not just in this class, but a group of my courses throughout Florida Poly, they actually kind of randomized you in groups when you had a group project, especially for developers. We fairly seldom got to pick, especially that CAD project at the end of our senior year. You were just kind of randomly grouped, which I've been at my company for 6 years now, and I have had so many organization changes within my team. So the like 8 individuals I work with today are not the same that I worked at with the beginning of this year and even like 2 weeks ago. So you're constantly changing, and you're constantly learning to just work with others. So not only the course curriculum at Florida Poly was challenging, but they help grow like soft skills that you need to work for the workforce.
Oh, yeah, no, 100%. I love that you mentioned the project management class because it was my favorite class, and that's why I also made the decision to do what I do for work now, so which is kind of funny, but to me, what I feel like looking back into college, a lot of the students were so focused into like the coding classes, the math classes, all of that, which is amazing. You need to understand the knowledge. That's what you're going to utilize to do your full time job at the end of the day once you leave college, right? But also the importance of classes like that, like the project management. I think those were not people's main focus, but it's one of those classes that everyone is going to use no matter what you decide to do in life. You need to be able to work with a team, with a very diverse team, like you mentioned, and multiple always changes. Work is always, always changing. And then also everyone's gonna work on a project. Everyone's gonna work having to figure out a solution for a problem, having to present to some type of stakeholder, having to come up with timelines, budgets, lines. All of that is part of everyone's job at the end of the day. I think it's every industry that you work for, every type of role that you have, that's such a huge skill. And I love that you mentioned that. And I remember like me taking that class, I was like, yep, this is it. That is kind of what I want to do with my life. And here I am now. But no, I agree with you with everything else that you said as well about the classes and the curriculum. They were super challenging, which not that I was surprised, but I was surprised at the same time. I don't know. I think I was just shocked in the beginning of this is really hard. How are we all surviving this? So it was super challenging, especially for a brand new school that had just opened for them to bring really great professors that had all this extensive knowledge that were just teaching us all these really hard topics and concepts and trying to get everything in our brains. It was awesome. It was a great experience for sure, which I think those challenging courses and having challenges throughout college also helps within a career path afterwards, right? Where we're going to have challenges, we're going to have to learn new things and challenging topics depending on what the road that you do. Technology is changing. You have to learn and keep up with technology. So, yeah, the university itself just taught us so much in every aspect of the way. And I love that you brought up those, especially the project management class. But no, that is amazing. Besides the curriculum and the challenging classes, what were some other things that you really appreciated, that you really enjoy, or some things that maybe you didn't enjoy as much about going to the university or sometimes living in the city that the university is? Those are some pros and cons on my mind, but what was your experience with everything else at that point?
So definitely at the time of Florida Poly, just being kind of new, we don't have a lot of like establishment with clubs that we do now. We didn't have a lot of choices. I was very career workforce focused. I did was informed of, I think it, at the time was like women in STEM, that group. I was a little nervous. I won't lie. I was at the beginning of that era where I knew I needed to connect, like network. I come from a background where I don't really have friends and family in STEM. So I knew that there's a point in my journey that I'm going to need to utilize other people's perspectives within the STEM fields for workforce who have been there to kind of give me guidance on how I can further improve where I'm lacking and just encourage me and empower me as an individual, especially a woman in STEM, because it can just be a little scary. And just having that voice really helps. So, for the first, I want to say the first year, I kind of coasted like off the radar just by myself until I really started branching out. And I did get involved with pretty much women in STEM with that chapter, which really kind of helped me. Now, I did like the ability to be a part of other social aspects of Florida Poly without feeling that pressure of joining a group or an organization. So I did enjoy a lot of the free options that Florida Poly provided, and also the clubs and organizations that we had at the time said, hey, you don't have to join, but we're having this open seminar, this workshop. And then also just the career resource that we had, where we had counselors and people to kind of help, really helped me. Lakeland, that was interesting. It was actually, I actually enjoyed the city, surprisingly. I come from a small town, did not grow up in any city environment. We're talking just like just small, but I did live off campus my whole time at Florida Poly. Being a transfer student, I kind of got a pass for on campus and then living on campus and then also summer classes. But the person I am, I was still taking summer classes. So yeah, it was interesting to get used to Lakeland. But Lakeland in itself, in its way, is a college town. I actually ventured out, and some of those campuses, you'll be surprised, not only Florida Poly, but there's other campuses in Lakeland that had an architect build and design them. So I did enjoy the history. And then I did learn kind of like movies that have been shot in Florida and learning about them. So Edward Scissorhands, there is a plaza down a little past downtown Lakeland that was used in the movie, which is just cool. Even the time being at Florida Poly, I think they did air or film another movie then while we were in school. So it was just cool to see that city kind of grow with us along the way. So I wasn't too nervous. There wasn't really downside with honestly Florida Poly, I would say with me. I kind of took it with strides. If there was a challenge or an issue, I kind of took it as it was and learned from it. It wasn't until um, pretty much looking for jobs towards my senior year of Florida Poly is where I kind of hit a bump in a road that almost derailed me from my decision and the kind of degree I pursued. I kind of question if I'm actually a good enough programmer than I thought I was.
Oh, wow. Okay. Before we go into that whole
Yeah.
story right there, which I'm just so curious to know what happened, you touched base a little bit in regards to like being part of Women in STEM, networking, how it was a point at university after your first year that you're like, okay, this is how I have to do it. I have to get out of my comfort zone. I have to network. I have to talk to people and figure it out. How do I go now from a STEM university to a STEM career path? What was some like tips and things that you learned in college in regards to the networking experience? And how did you use Women in STEM or some other organizations or groups to grow the network while you're in college?
So Women in STEM really helped me first to kind of get me out of my shell and kind of set my goals and what I actually want to share with others, regardless of where I'm at in my career experience, how long I've been in my field. Which towards my senior year at Florida Poly, I actually was able to become the professional chair on the board for the Society of Women Engineers, which kind of in line with what I established for that goal. So I was able to kind of create workshops and set meetings up to kind of encourage people to build their LinkedIn because that was big at the time, doing those resumes, and then also having that opportunity to do the conventions, I think really helped kick myself into gear just to kind of talk with companies, whether I was looking for a position at the time or not. It really got me out of my shell, kind of was able to learn how to promote myself, which I think is a very big key for anybody. And then Florida Poly itself, having those career fairs really helps. I feel like it kind of helps push you to kind of step out of your comfort zone and say, hey, my name is Ashton. this is what I'm studying, or I'm a software engineer. I'm interested in your company A, B, C, D. And then that conversation starts. Funny enough, I got my internship through the Florida Poly Career Fair. It actually wasn't a software position. I met a manager who worked for a flight simulation company out in Orlando, and he was actually recruiting flight simulation technicians, which their company a long time ago did used to build their simulators from start to finish. So they do have some software developers, but the position itself wasn't going to be there. But I still had my mindset that maybe aviation is something I wanted to do. I do have some family that is in aviation, so I kind of had some experience, some knowledge, and interest in it. So I was really set on that internship. So I did always respectfully, professionally, with the amount of time, follow up and said, "Hey, um, I don't know if you remember me, we met, but I'm really interested. I know I'm a software engineer, but like, I will not let you down." And I got it. I got the internship as a software engineer. I was a flight simulation technician, so pretty much was maintaining the simulators. If something broke, I had to replace that part. So they have full motion simulators, but also just like cockpit simulators. You're pretty much going into a plane cockpit. So it looks like inside the plane, especially the ones that just sit still, and then you just have really big screens around that plane. So you have a full visual. So I was learning how to replace those like components, which they're the switches and the buttons they're they have circuit boards. So you do have to do some soldering. So I learned skills like that, learned how to correct their hydraulic system, fix that. So I gained knowledge of things I may not be doing to my day to day now, but I like the fact that I was able to pursue something different. And then who knows, maybe if I wanted to pivot again, I would have, but it was a really good experience. I really enjoyed it. And I learned a lot. I worked on a team. So yeah, you pretty much were on call. So if a simulator was down, the pilot would call us and let us know which simulator they were at. And then we would go triage the situation and then try to resolve it from there, which in a way helped me too as a software engineer because you do have to triage and debug code a lot. So just learning that and then just having that soft skill growth of working with a pilot. And then they also have a client with them in the room. So just learning to be professional, how to address people. So yeah, it was a really rewarding experience.
That is awesome. That is so unique, honestly. It's so unique to think of like, okay, you're a software engineer. What career path and what jobs have you had? And then that's the job you've had, your first internship. That is amazing. One thing that I always tell everyone, which I'm really glad you did, I always tell everyone, even if the internship opportunities that you learn about or they're presented to you is not exactly what you fully want to do with your career path or you think what you want to do with your career path, right? You should take it. You should take it, take the experience. You're going to learn things no matter what. And you're going to learn skills that you for sure will use in the future, like you just mentioned some of them, but also some really cool skills that not a lot of people have. So that is also a plus. And just to look at your resume and be like, "Oh, this is the job she had." Like that is crazy. That is so cool. That is amazing. And I'm glad you also took the step to get out of your comfort zone, go to the career fair, network with this company and reach out to them and let them know like, "Hey, I am interested in this position." Even though my background doesn't align, even though my degree doesn't align, I want to try it out. And I think it also opens the door to give you the opportunity to learn a little bit more about yourself as well on what do you like and what do you don't like to do? What do you like about a position or about a company or just yourself? What are some of your preferences when it comes to your career path and everything? No, but that is awesome. That is such a cool internship. I'm glad you had the experience. That is amazing. And then
Yeah,
from that internship, how did it go from there to, you graduating college? You mentioned that it was a little of a bumpy road after you graduated. How was the whole path for you?
yeah. So I'm gonna actually take it a little step back and towards the
Go for
beginning of
it.
my senior. So I did actually had a job offer with a company, aviation to be a software developer. Had the offer, but I still had about I think we still had about 4 months of college still left, and it was going to be out of state. I actually, for the 3 years that I was in Lakeland, I was away from my family, so I definitely need to consider that. I actually connected with a professor and faculty that I kind of saw as a mentor at Florida Poly, told them my dilemma and said, "Hey, I don't know what to do. It's a great opportunity, but I'm a little worried going to a state, be further away from my family, pretty much starting over again, just by myself. That made me a little nervous. So we had a good one-to-one talk and reflection that they shared their perspective, especially leaving their home to come to America, and just a little bit of background and how they challenged it. So it kind of helped me make the decision that at the time, I could not commit to that, not knowing how I would feel almost towards graduation and post graduation. And that was just for me, especially not being able to do like an internship or maybe like something prior just kind of just made the decision right. So towards almost graduation, I actually decided that I wanted to stay kind of closer to home if possible, just to kind of be able to revisit my family as needed and then just kind of start from there. Ironically, found a position locally for this similar company. So I did apply for them, um, got accepted, got an offer, and then right before kind of my start date, I was contacted, asking for another technical assessment. It did not actually go very well. I'm not sure what the hiccup was, and this is a good example of where when we do interviews, we can ask like, "Hey, where can I improve or where did I fall short?" Sometimes companies will be open to sharing that feedback to you to help you kind of prepare for the next one and maybe take a step back, evaluate and even test your skill sets. Because as a software engineer at the time, I was using tools like HackerRank and all those sites to kind of just like test and challenge my programming skills. And some companies actually use them to actually do their interviews, their technical interviews. So I actually didn't get some feedback. So I was honestly really crushed. I did connect with my network and resources at Florida Poly, and I said, "Hey, here are these questions I took. I was informed that they were incorrect. Can you just go and maybe try them out and see what your results were?" And then we kind of cross reference. So I was a little crushed. I did take a kind of have that imposter syndrome aspect that I was like, maybe I'm just not cut out for this like I thought I was. Grades are great. I felt like I excelled um, on a career level, but maybe just not a workforce. I did um, connect with a few other resources in my social circle, and they just ensured me that don't give up. It could have been just a circumstantial thing where they had to make a hard decision. It just kind of went the way it was. I have nothing against that company, but it kind of instilled that if it was meant to be, it would have been. And I'm kind of glad that I went through that experience, but then I wouldn't have found where I'm at now in my company and being able to, I actually work in financial technologies now, and my work is just always changing. It's never the same project, never the same challenge or task being presented to me. So I do like the flexibility. Well, I wouldn't most of my programming languages in college were geared towards like pursuing something possibly in aviation. So I was very surprised to have landed the job where I'm at now, but also I just like that opportunity to maybe fail, but just pick myself back up and continue forward, take that as a lesson learned. And even if you have to self-reflect, say, what could I have done better, and just keep moving forward. But yeah, that was I know sometimes it's challenging in those interviews and maybe getting a setback, but it
Oh, yeah.
doesn't mean it's the end.
No, 100%. No, I agree with you 1000%. 1, I'm sorry that happened. I feel like I have to say that, but at the same time, I always tell everyone, I'm like, in a very weird way, I'm always like, "I'm sorry, but I'm not," because I feel like we always end up where we're supposed to be. That's my own personal beliefs, to be honest. Like you mentioned, you wouldn't have found the company that you work for now or the type of job that you do now if that position actually worked out, right? And it is a very like imposter syndrome that we get. And sadly, we always tend to like blame ourselves a little bit of maybe I'm not smart enough, maybe I'm not cut out for this, maybe this is just not for me, or at the end of the day, a lot of the decisions that happen with a company, it's a company decision. It has nothing to do with us. It's just sometimes they needed someone with a little bit more experience or a different type of knowledge that we didn't have at that point. That has happened to me before too, of me applying for jobs, and especially nowadays, you go through like 4, 5, 6 interviews. It's insanity. And you just go through all the interviews and then something doesn't work. But a great point that you mentioned is always asking for some feedback and always trying to learn and grow from that experience. That's something that I've learned as well, and I have been doing as much as possible every time that I would apply for a position. It's okay if you don't get it, that's okay. Learn from it. Ask the company, okay, what can I improve? Right? If I wanted to reapply for this position later on, what are some things that you want me to learn? What are some things that you want me to
Mhm.
work on for that future opportunity? And also just understanding, okay, maybe this is just not for me, and don't give up, don't give up, and don't give up. I know a lot of people get really hurt, and we all go through the self-sabotage a little bit at that point of, should I just not apply? Should I just stop right now, figure something else out? And especially nowadays, things are really rough, and getting a job out of college is really challenging with so many opportunities that we used to have. I'll say a little bit more where now there's not a lot of positions open or whatever the case may be. There's so many other things to keep in perspective than just this is on me or it's something that I need to do. Most of the times it's not you, it's the company or the situation or how the world is right now in the STEM world. I'm glad that you didn't give up. I'm glad that you keep applying. I'm glad that you keep moving on and moving forward and just keeping now the positive mindset of, okay, this happened, but you learned something from it and you grew from it. So that is amazing. And so that happened. You didn't get the position. How did you find the company that you actually work for now? How was that transition, the little path of from one position didn't work, you went through interviews, you got your background, you got to learn something to completely different industry that you work on now.
Yeah. So one thing I want to highlight when it comes to job searching, kind of like treat it as, regardless of where you're starting at, if you're in college, fresh out of college, or even looking for a job now, treat that as a job itself. Work for it every day, research as much as you can, find ways to improve. So I did have that kind of mentality, which was kind of granted to me by the career coaches at Florida Poly. Shout out to them, and also just being able to answer questions like, "Hey, what should I be asking for, like, my salary?" Which I think is another big thing because I found when I was in the workforce, some of my colleagues at the time, just fresh out of college themselves, didn't really have the same guidance, and they didn't really understand that your salary can kind of be kind of like, "Hey, this is what I'm worth." This is in promoting yourself, and I'm like, yeah, that's you gotta promote, you gotta say and evaluate what you bring to the table and put a number to that. I know it's a little scary to think that way, and you might be like, am I estimating too high? But back to your original question, I just wanted to highlight that real
Well,
quick. But transitioning, so yeah, I before that opportunity, I was treating interviews and job applications like it was my day-to-day job. Anytime I had a free time between courses and my full-time job at the time, applying was my full-time job. So we did have that hiccup and I took it and ran with it. And immediately that same day was applying and researching. What I actually was also doing is we do know Florida Poly is really big on the internships. It's pretty much required. And a lot of our colleagues and the student body is it may already have internships and positions within certain companies. So I actually started diving into that pool too. So I found a connect at my current company, reached out to that student at the time and said, "Hey, how do you like this company? What do you like about it?" because it was in a totally different field, as being financial technology. So I reached out to them. They offered to also refer me. So when I applied, I did add their name as a referral, and from there, I got kind of a call, set up an interview, met my first manager at that company in that interview, and got hired. They pretty much just asked and made some clarifications. And what I also didn't know about the company was that they kind of have a program, a 2-year program where they hire new grads. You are considered a full-fledged software engineer one, but with the knowledge that you just got out of college. So there may be some learning aspects to getting the swing of things within the company and the work that you're working on. So I kind of like that too. Not so much pressure, because I was seeing a lot of that in other job applications and just interviews themselves. The experience, right? Kind of having 3 to 5 years experience, depending of the job. Some of the technical interviews were reading code that one of their developers programmed without comments. So it was really hard to fully get a full picture, and it's just like one Java class. So I kind of liked that opportunity and the transition, and it was just very surprising and very encouraging that they expected me not to know everything, but believed in myself and what I presented, and self-promoted during the interview that I was right for that task. So,
That is amazing. I love the program that they have, and I wish every single company has something like that, to be fairly honest. Because right now, you will go into not all companies, of course, but you go into a lot of the company's website, look for jobs, and they say entry level. What is the expectations of entry level? You have no experience. It's an entry, right? You're just getting at the door first time. And then you look through the requirements, and it's like 3 to 5 years of experience, which makes to me personally no sense, to be fairly honest, because then technically it's not entry level at that point, right? If you need experience, a couple of years of experience in the area is not an entry level position. And I think those positions should not be marked as an entry level. So I really appreciate companies like yours where they do have that in their minds of, okay, we do have an entry level role, knowing that this person is coming from college where their knowledge is classroom knowledge and projects knowledge. And now we're going to utilize that, the knowledge and the person itself, to learn how to transition that into an actual career path, into an actual, right, like full time role. I think college students have so much knowledge to offer, but not a lot of companies give the opportunity anymore. If you don't go from like an internship to a full time job within the same company, it's really challenging to find that. So I love that your company have the program. I love that you're able to get to that program and keep growing within that role that you started. That is amazing. And then I also loved the other 2 points that you made, which I really want to emphasize again. And one, how you reached out to someone, to a connection through your networking, and that person worked in the company that you work for, and from there you're able to get a referral. You're able to learn even before you apply for the position, how is the company, what are some good things, what does the company do, and just get more knowledge from it. um, and then get a referral, and that opens the door. I would say, I always like to tell people, if you find someone on LinkedIn that works for a company and you really love the company, you're super interested on it, reach out to people. Everyone is super willing to just take a couple minutes, chat with you, teach you about their company or their role or whatever the questions you have, and refer you to those positions. So I'm glad you went and did that and use your networking skills that you learned to get to that point. And the other piece that you mentioned was the salary and how much you're worth, and that is huge. People don't see it, but that is huge. The comment you made of, what if I'm going too high of a number? What I tell everyone is, go with the high number. What's the worst that can happen is the company will go back to you and be like, okay, the number is a little too high. This is what we're actually able to offer you, right? And then you just kind of play a little game, I like to say, to get the in between, the middle
yeah.
ground. You go very high, they go very low, you try to go for the middle, and you end up making a good amount of money and a salary that you deserve for the job that you actually put it into. I know a lot of college students, after they graduate, they kind of settle for whatever any company offers because they think, okay, I don't have the experience, but you bring so much knowledge and you are being hired for that position because they see that. They see the value that you bring, the knowledge that you bring, and how you're going to do amazing in their company. But every company is super focused on the financial aspect of it, no matter what. They need money to make money. That's the whole circle of life. So usually they go with, okay, we have a base salary, a middle, a high, and they go with the base. And there's always room to play around with that salary if you do really feel that I'm worth more. And I think everyone should have that perspective and everyone should have the mentality of, I am worth this amount. Of course, do some research of, right, like what the company pay for, what those positions are actually worth. Don't come up with like, I'm worth $1 million. The companies, they're not going to pay $1 million, but you do some research. I do think it's super, super important for you to go and have those conversations. And it's very awkward and uncomfortable, I'll say, to have those conversations, especially when you go through the interview process and it's like the last interview and they're like, okay, let's talk about salaries. And you have to be like, this is how much I want, and have those back and forth conversations. It's a little weird, it's a little awkward. You get better as you practice and try to use also the resources from university, like you mentioned, even to practice those questions of what is the best way to approach some of those questions and how do I get better with interview processes or anything. Universities have all the resources that you need to learn from it before you even jump into those interviews. So I love that you brought up that point actually, because that's a really big one that people don't really take into consideration, to be honest. So that is amazing.
Yeah, and I wanna also highlight too, in extent to that, sometimes the salary doesn't outweigh the position too itself. So also just reflecting on where you're at and what you want, especially if it's your first position, especially an entry level job. Of course, you're not going to get that like six figures. That is guaranteed. Region is plays a factor, living costs. But also, if you have a set dream to work in a specific industry in STEM, and this is your opportunity, and you may have to take a little hit, and you don't mind taking that hit in the salary, I say go for it. Do what's right for you and your journey. 'Cause you the way I live is when it feels right, I'm gonna take it. I don't want to be a few weeks down the road, months or years, and regret not making that decision to get that experience because we all start from somewhere, and I think experience too and growth holds a lot of weight. And then I've even seen people in my company for whether reasons that they wanted, maybe they found a position that was geared more to the type of work they actually want to contribute to. So they're no longer within my company, but they found a position that that they enjoy, and maybe it's like more on a different perspective than just financial technologies. And I think that that's important to take in consideration. You try this out, and then you learn your perspectives, like we were talking earlier. That kind of self reflection really helps. And I believe that you can set yourself a goal and achieve it no matter what your history is, your skill set, because we're all unique in our own ways. Myself and you could have the same goal, but being two different people, we might be going at it in a different direction and a different path. People face challenges that are similar, but the way we overcome them and how we excel in those and grow from them is going to be unique in itself. So I just like that the journey is always going to be changing for someone. It's never going to be the same for someone else. And just staying true of what you want, I think would be very beneficial and rewarding in itself as in a career.
I love that. I love what you just said, truly. It really touches like my heart in a way because there's so many different perspectives that you can see, right? I'm very, very focused into that too. Of I always say you can accomplish anything that you put your mind into. That is my sentence that I tell every single person when they're debating on, is this goal too big or should I do this? Should I do that? It's like if that is in the back of your mind, you're passionate about it, it's a goal of yours, go and do it. Like everyone's gonna approach things very differently, just like you mentioned, but I think every single goal is reachable if you just work towards that direction and give your all to accomplishing the goals that you want. So that's a powerful statement that I live by every single day, to be fairly honest. And I love that you also said that just go for it, right? If that is something that you want to do, yeah, sometimes it's gonna be a different quote unquote like hit in a way of okay, maybe you're making less money, or maybe it's not a remote job, it's a hybrid, or there's going to be changes, right? But if you're passionate about that career path, that role, that company, or whatever the case may be, go and do it. Live that experience so you don't look back in life with regrets of I should have done that. I speak from experience on that of having some opportunities and not taking it and looking back even now and be like, I should have done it. I was worrying about everything else in life and I wasn't just like focused on the bigger picture of that's just what I wanted to do at the moment. So yeah, I'll say listen to you, listen to what you just said. Like I keep telling myself in the back of my mind, okay, next opportunity, you have to jump into it. Don't go through it again. Cause living with regrets is kind of it sucks, honestly. And sometimes opportunities will not come back into your life again. Sometimes it's just one time and you just have to jump and do it. And if it works, that's amazing. If it doesn't work, that is okay too. You can always change. You can always try to go back to what you were doing before, try something completely different. Your path does not have to be you graduate with this degree and for the rest of your life you die in the first company they work for. You can change companies, you can change roles, you can change degrees, you can change whatever you want in your life. I love that you brought those things up. Truly, I keep those in the back of my mind constantly, every single day.
You completely reminded me of the motto I heard for my company when I started is that um, they don't expect them to be your first company. They expect them to be your last. So, and that's not in to say that, hey, I can't leave it. No, they're ensuring me that I may come back even if I do. So that's what my company strives for in growth that way. So yeah, that kind of reminded me of that motto.
And I love that. And I think that's how companies should approach, right? Because I think if you leave, let's say, and you try a whole different position in another company, you're going to learn something completely different that you're bringing back to them at the end of the day. You're bringing a whole different perspective of your knowledge, a whole other like knowledge sets that you're bringing. Like it's just an add on to them, right? And they get back an amazing employee. So that is awesome. I love that your company has a motto, honestly. That's beautiful. I know a lot of companies that don't. They're just kind of want to keep their employees with them forever. And I'm like, that's how things used to be back in the day, which I understand. It's just not how it is anymore. Now with like the younger generation and our generation of we want to try different things. We want things to change in life a little bit. So I love that you brought that up. And so now you did the program for 2 years with the company that you work for now, and you mentioned that you've been there for 6 years. What do you see? If you think to yourself right now, we're going to do a whole live reflection. What do you want your future to look like? Is there any transition that you want to take in your career path or your personal life or anything at all?
So for career wise, because as I shared, I'm a big staple of that I have my work life persona. So once work ends, I leave that at the door, and then it's just my home, my normal self, Ashton persona, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We do have, I strongly believe you do have a certain persona in a way to present yourself, and then you might be a little bit more laid back, not so cautious at home. So for my career path, I definitely am trying to achieve growth to where eventually I can later down in the road when the time is right and I am ready to take that leadership type of role. I really want to strive to be kind of a technical leader to where not only can I help manage, but also help achieve and complete projects as needed with my software background and experience. That is where I'm kind of aiming for. And I'm not sure if that will be with the company I'm at. I'm not sure where that's going to look like because our future is not guaranteed. But I always am self reflecting on where I'm at. So after the 2 years, we get graduated to software engineer one out of that kind of like 2 year program and title. So nothing really changes in that transition. You just been working with the company for 2 years, so you have more experience with the organization that you work. Because I am one organization umbrella out of a large global financial technology company, which is kind of like to me is mind-boggling every time I learn about how large our company is and how much we actually interact with financial transactions. Just learning that we touch like a credit card once in its life cycle, whether it's through a bank or just you going grocery shopping, utilizing those payment systems. or like online payment. It's wild. So I'm just like I like to say I'm just like a little ant working through a big colony. But it's cool to know, even though my part seems small, it's largely contribute. So as I am in the software engineer one position, after being there for a few years, I felt that I had enough significant growth to where I was evaluating my skill sets, the type of work I do on a day to day basis, and then I was comparing it to like the next level up. So once I had kind of like all that feedback, which I did have a great opportunity to network with someone at my location, at my office here in Florida. We have this like mystery coffee kind of meet and greet. So you randomly get paired with someone. So we were just chatting over coffee, and I explained to them that I wasn't sure how to approach the promotion discussion, and they gave me some really good tips of just like listing out everything I was doing, all my skill sets, where I grew from the technologist engineer one to the software engineer one, and how I can contribute as a software engineer too. So I presented that to my manager. So we had some um, deep discussion, one-on-ones, and we made it happen. He saw the reflection and presented that was presented to him and the information I provided, and agreed. Within a couple months later, I was promoted to a software engineer too. So I feel like if I keep going that route, always monitoring where I'm at and say, hey, this is where I'm at now. I want to be here. How do I get here? And just also just compare. So that's pretty much my workflow for that. I came across a saying that said if someone followed you around for a week, would they actually think you're serious on achieving your goal? So I kind of take that as self-reflection of this is where I want to be. Am I actually contributing to get there? Am I meeting my milestones? Am I presenting myself appropriately, especially with your manager discussions? I think it's important to be prepared, set that time, and to just drive the discussion. Say, hey, this is what I want to talk about. Here's the points. I haven't done uh, this approach yet, but I did have a empowerment woman meeting that I attended, and one of the attendees shared that she sets up a full PowerPoint for her one-on-one management discussions. And I've never actually presented that way. I had my camera on and I discussed it, but I was like, that is a good idea. I might actually do that so we can actually see what I'm actually discussing. So hopefully maybe that helps to get where I want to be in a couple years as a leader position.
That is amazing. No, I love your approach. I love how you just got to a point where you're like, okay, I do think I deserve a promotion, and this is the reasons why. And you brought up to your manager. Sometimes that's all they need. Sometimes they completely forgot, or they're so busy. People are so busy now at work. That that's all it takes. If you think it's time of, hey, I do think I deserve a promotion, and this is the reason why, you have to bring it up. That's kind of the path that I'm going through right now, where I'm going through that realization of, okay, I've been with a company for 3.5 years. This is everything that I've done, and I do think it's time for me to level up in another way. So I love the presentation option. I was not thinking about it. I was thinking of literally just like having a conversation. But now I'm going to change my whole approach. I love it. I love because the presentation you can actually, in a visual way, explain what your words are saying, which I think it could help. So I'm gonna put that to test very, very soon. I love that you mentioned it. And I wish you 100% all the good luck with your future
Thank you.
career. I'm sure, like I said again, if you put a goal in your mind, you have everything in your power to make it happen. So I'm pretty sure you're gonna make it happen very, very soon. You're already 6 years in. There's only growing and going up from now, right? If it is with this company or another opportunities, whatever it comes to your life, I just hope that when those opportunities come, you just keep the same attitude that you have now of you're gonna jump in, you're gonna go and do it, and you're gonna learn something new, grow as a person, grow in your career, grow in every way with whatever opportunity that is. So that is super amazing. And I'm glad to hear that that's the next step and that you're really looking forward to the next goal and the next thing in your life, which I think it's really important because it pushes us to grow, to focus on something different, to learn a lot more when we do have a goal in mind of something that you want to do more than what you're doing right now. So that is awesome. And to finish up this episode, I know you mentioned a lot of amazing things. Is there anything else that you would like to share from your experience in life? If you could look back at your younger self, is there anything else that you would tell her um, right now?
Honestly, just keep pushing forward. You are going to face some challenges. You may question yourself in areas, but you're going to be proud looking back from where you're at now and then what you've become, especially um, just it's interesting to talk about growth because it's not like a drastic change. You don't just wake up and you're a completely different person. You are progressively just growing, and it's not so noticeable until a few years down the road and you look back. Um, I am very proud that I stood by how I felt. With changing my major. I enjoy keeping my art close to as a personal thing. I utilize my appreciation for STEM into that now because we are going digital. So now my art from pen to paper is transitioning to digital, learning how I'm not a mechanical engineer, but I enjoy learning how 3D printers work, how I can transition my illustrations to uh, a 3D concept and print that out. And learning about applications like Nomad Sculpt, which in its way is like as if you're like sculpting clay, but you're doing it digitally, which I enjoy doing. But also I enjoy the fact that I am not limiting myself, and I would always encourage my younger self and anybody else who is at a point where they're like, I don't know what I want to do. Just try it. We talk about me going for a completely different type of position for my internship, but like last year, for example, I was already taking time off to attend a conference local in my area that I've attended for the last like 5 years. And this is not a kind of STEM conference. This is just a fun conference, kind of like Comic Con in a way. But I was looking at social media and I saw this company who does workshops for that convention. They were actually looking for applicants to kind of hire for that convention weekend, work either their booths or help with their panels. So I knew that I wanted to learn how to make silicone molds and work with resin. And that is what their workshop like gears towards. So I applied for their panel position. I got hired and I enjoyed being able to connect with individuals with that experience. And now I have a whole nother networking group where I can utilize and kind of ping back saying, hey, 3D modeling, like I need help here, or can you help with this? And I just want to encourage that you're not limited to just your degree career set. Take those opportunities and run with them.
That is amazing. I love how you're so artistic and creative at the same time. I don't know why, but I am not the most creative person or artistic, to be fairly honest. You have to see me drawing. I draw like a 2-year old, not even a 5-year old, like a 2-year old with like the little selfie sticks and whatnot. But I just love that. I love that you're able to not just limit yourself career wise with what you do, but also the personal touch that you just brought with learning a little bit more, keeping up with the technology, like you said, utilizing the technology now with the art and the creative side of you, and participating in conferences and events and doing other stuff that does not have to be related to your job or to the industry that you work, but it can be 100% related to your passion. And you can learn so much more just from your passion and your hobbies and things that you like to do in your own personal life. Like everything that I think we mentioned in this whole call can go both directions, right? Like your growth can be in a personal way, not just a career way. And I'm really glad that you're taking the approach in both ways. And I'm really glad that you will tell that to your younger self, because I think that's something that I probably add up to my list of telling my younger self too, of like not limiting myself. That is a really good one. But no, I appreciate you taking your time, you participating on the podcast. It's been so amazing to just hear your full story from the beginning to, I don't want to say the end, but to the present moments, because there's so much more to come in the future. So thank you so much for sharing everything.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I enjoyed this opportunity and I am excited to see where you go from here too.
Thank
And good luck
you.
on your podcast.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it, honestly. It's been a fun project, not gonna lie. I love doing this. But no, thank you everyone also listening to this episode. It's been such an amazing time have Ashton today sharing her whole amazing story from an art background to a STEM background afterwards now, I'll say, and her future experiences and everything in between that you've shared. It's been amazing. If you enjoyed this episode and you enjoy everything that we talked about, I will have a lot more guests coming up every other Tuesday for you guys. So stay tuned. All over the links to social media and everything is in the description below. And bye for now.